Okay. Is that all I had to do? Uh, Good evening. Welcome to the Residential Services and Public Engagement Committee meeting on February 10th, 2026. Mr. Clerk, when you're ready, can you please call the roll?
Councilor Callahan. Councilor Lemming. Councilor Scarpelli.
Present.
Councilor Singh.
Present.
And Chair Mullane.
Present. All right. Welcome, everyone. So the first discussion item offered today is to review the City Council newsletter. So I will try to share my screen here. All right. It's not showing my. Can everyone see that? All right. Any comments, any questions, anything that I can make edits on in here as we're looking at it? It was just so wonderfully written and put together and sent out a little last
I
minute.
thought I was reading Shakespeare.
You know, I tried. I really tried. So basically, just try to put together everything that happened from January, from the past two city council meetings, as well as adding in information around some of the committees that we had from the Committee of the Whole, outlining all of the grants that were given out, the special meeting that was with the City Council and the Community Development Board, and the Planning and Permitting Committee. It took a long time because there's already a lot of work that was accomplished in the month of January, so kudos to everyone. If there are no edits or suggestions, is there a motion? Oh, sorry.
No, I would just like to thank Chair Mullane for drafting this very nice newsletter. I don't have. I'd have to go back through, but just to, and I this comes with the caveat that I did look at it earlier today, and I already offered my corrections then. But does this contain the events that happened since the previous newsletter, or just since January? So do they contain any late December meetings? And again,
So it's only for the month of January. I
Okay.
didn't go back further
Yes, and-
than that.
okay. And once again, I already had looked through this draft beforehand, but I'm just going to very briefly.
Councilor Mullane, if I could, while Matt is looking through.
Okay, no, just.
Yes, go ahead,
Yep.
Counselor Singh.
I just was just thinking. So for ICE, just to capitalize all of ICE, ICE, and then with the reaffirmation part, I think part of the resolution was to work with MPD and city administration to develop policies to protect the constitutional rights of residents. So maybe working that in a little bit would be helpful to understand what that part means.
Sure. Um, Sorry, Counselor Singh, can you say that one more time? Which part of it, for some reason, I
Yeah,
had a
it's
hard.
just on the yeah, on this page that you're on right now. Mm.
Mhm.
So at the January 20th meeting, the first bullet point. Mm.
This one?
The one below it. Um, it's that one.
This one? Okay.
Yeah, just to capitalize ICE, and then um, I would probably change reaffirm to just something that explains what the resolution is a bit more. Maybe something like work with city administration and the Medford Police Department um, to develop policies to protect the constitutional rights of residents. Just like putting that in there somehow.
Okay, I can wordsmith that a little bit.
Thank you. And then on the vacant building thing at the very end,
The end of the entire newsletter?
yes, yeah.
Sure.
I would just add in um somewhere, just add in some, like I would just add in somewhere that we're just soliciting more feedback to continue to make adjustments to the ordinance.
Okay. Thank you.
And then one more note. I know this is the January newsletter, so I'm not entirely sure if we put February like stuff from the February 3rd meeting into it. Matt, you can kind of correct me on this point. But for the Cataldo contracts, I know, or the Cataldo ambulance stuff, I know that we also Councilor Scarpelli and President Bears also had their resolutions because
Yes.
we haven't received the responses. So just to, I think
Ah,
that could be a place to note it.
okay. I can do that.
But if we're doing February 3rd, then there we have Anna's resolution on face masking or the identifying self as well. Mm. And there's
Okay.
just more stuff to throw into. And there's I don't know if we want to save that for the next newsletter or put in this one.
Um, any thoughts? Do we want to put that in this one or wait for the next one?
So right now, I'm just drafting up some paragraphs to cover the 2 meetings from December 16th. And we could make the decision to just delay the February meetings until, to delay coverage of the February meetings until the next session. I think that would make sense, but I'm about to email I'm just preparing some paragraphs to email coverage of the December 16th meeting, because I kind of do want that like gap from at least before this time period in there covered. And so, yeah, that's just things like we passed a resolution commemorating the outgoing Vice President Collins, and a couple of other things that were covered on December 16th.
I think that makes a lot of sense. We shouldn't overclutter this, and it would be cleaner too.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Councilor Lemon. Any other thoughts, suggestions? Councilor Callahan.
Thanks. I totally agree with putting the February ones in a later one. Let's just catch up on December. We'll finish all of January, and then we'll have a clear marker.
Great, thank you. All right, so it looks like I have a few edits. Thank you, everyone, for taking a look at it. Counselor Lemming's going to send me some thoughts around December, and then we should be able to hopefully finish this up and get this out shortly.
Thank you, Councilor Mullane, for working so hard on this. It's really, really helpful to have this for our residents, and you did a great job on it. I'd like to motion to approve this for publication and circulation pending further edits.
Is there a second? Seconded by Counselor Callahan. All in favor? Or do I have to do a roll call? Roll call. Mr. Clerk, can you please call a roll?
Counselor Callahan. Counselor Lemming. Counselor Scarpelli.
Yes.
Counselor Singh.
Yes.
Chair Mullane.
Yes. All right, so we can move on. Okay. Sharing. So the next item on the agenda is the resolution to establish city council listening sessions. Does anyone want to report out on any listening sessions that they've been on over the past month or so? Sure.
Thank you. I just want to say that I'm very excited that we are bringing this particular motion into our new term, that we're going to continue to do listening sessions. I believe that they are going to be, we're going to have more. We've learned a lot from our first 2 years. You know, I'm just going to reiterate what it says in here, which is it's a very small percentage of residents of this city that ever communicate with their city councilors. Whether it's by phone, by email, by coming to the city council meetings, it is a very small percentage. So I believe it is incumbent upon us to go into the community and make sure that we hear from people who might never purposefully come to us. So that's what these are for. I'm really excited to continue doing them. You know, I'm looking forward to kind of a list of who we can reach out to. And of course, it kind of ties in with the one after this, which is doing them in wards. But we should separately from the wards ones, we should also just think about listening sessions in the way we were thinking about them last term. And like, where can we have them? We've had some really successful ones at the senior center. We did work through our community liaisons to have some for those communities. I think we should continue to really brainstorm and think about what other organizations we can reach out to and how we can have more of those sessions.
Anyone else, any other comments or anything they want to update on listening sessions? Counselor Lemming.
I did just want to say that the listening sessions and the other paper on, in this committee, the proposed ward meetings are likely going to be very redundant efforts. So yeah, even if I'm not going to say too much about the listening sessions, the ward meetings are kind of the exact same subject.
All right. Counselor Callahan?
Thanks. And I would just say, absolutely, I definitely think of the ward meetings as listening sessions as well. So, you know, I think having those ward meetings is going to be fantastic. We'll have them in each part of the city. You know, if our focus wants to be on that, to make sure that those get up and running, and meanwhile, we can also kind of in the back of our minds think about any other kinds of listening sessions that we can do, I'm very happy with that. They're all listening sessions.
Great, thank you. Any other comments on the listening sessions? Seeing none. Do we have a motion? Oh, sure. Sorry.
Thanks. Should know that by now. Patrick Clerkin, 14 Bennett Place, and I'm excited about these. My comments are basically first, I think one of the things with a lot of city communications in the past has just been, there's some great stuff out there, but just because it gets put out there doesn't mean that people know about it. So I think aside from hosting the listening sessions, the other big thing is how do we get people to be aware of the listening sessions in the first place? And how do we kind of funnel people to them to some extent? And I think that's partly, I'm sure you already have a degree of inventory of some existing city channels for that, but that might also involve creating some new ones. I don't know if there's like much physical infrastructure left. So that one of the things that I've noticed is there's a generational divide with, and it can be pretty stark at times. Some of the digital content, it's really great, but that can have its own problem where just because it's out there, it might be stashed away in a part of the city website that no one ever really looks at. But then there's also the physical side of it, which is a lot of people don't use the digital stuff. So how can you create notifications about these meetings that aren't digital? The other thing I wanted to mention was I think that what I noticed was that Medford gets more attention in the north-south dimension than it does in the east-west dimension. And that's partly because it's just like, me personally, I think that there's more problems in South Medford because it's more urban. There's more money and votes in North Medford. And then there's kind of, I guess, on the east-west axis, it's just not as extreme in either dimension. And plus, over near Wellington, it's just harder to find places to meet with people. So that's stuff that I've noticed. But I am excited about this, and if there's ways that the public can help you to bring people in, let us know. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And just to say, yes, would definitely love input, thoughts, suggestions, any other ways that we can reach people. I hear you about, some people are on different parts of social media. Some people are looking at things that are more, physical too. So open to any and all suggestions to try to encourage as many people to attend as possible. So thank you. All right. Any other public comments, either in the chambers or on Zoom? Seeing none. Is there a motion?
Motion to keep the paper in committee.
Great. Mr. Clerk, can you call the roll?
Counselor Callahan. Counselor Lemming.
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli.
Yes.
Counselor Singh.
Yes.
And Chair Mullane.
Yes.
Yes. 5 in favor, 0 against. We will keep it in committee. All right, and then moving to our next item is, the resolution to schedule neighborhood ward meetings hosted by the city council. I'm really excited about this. I think this would be a great way for us to be able to get into each of the different wards, to be able to meet with residents, to hear things that are happening for them specifically in Medford, then also within the ward that we might be able to address. But looking forward to kind of talking this through, hearing more suggestions and thoughts from other counselors, as well as any other type of public participation. Any comments so far? All right, Counselor.
So I'm really excited to get started on the process of planning the ward meetings. I think it would be productive for this committee to set a schedule for which wards we want to do, as well as locations in those wards, and then sort of brainstorm a bit of a format for how those ward meetings will look. Some of my initial thoughts on it were try to were to make the ward meetings consist of some kind of an initial social hour, kind of try to make an event out of them. I'm not sure what the budget is for these or if there will ever be one, but but just make it so that a thing where people can end up, talking at them. And then we will probably need some kind of a process for setting the agenda at these ward meetings, just figuring out what issues are going to be discussed. So if there's anything, so I know that for Ward 8, for instance, probably Medford Square, upcoming zoning changes could be one topic of discussion at the ward meetings. Trying to addressing residents' concerns about ICE, since that's another hot button issue, but just really trying to find things that both residents are concerned about and issues that are very local to that particular neighborhood, I think would be productive. I think it's also important to maybe try to commit to having one ward meeting and one or two ward meetings in the very near future, designates certain counselors to put on and run them, and then figure out what works, what didn't, and from there sort of use that to adjust meetings in the future, because I imagine we could be trying a number of things which may or may not work for these meetings. And we'll have to come back and sort of say that. One thing that could be tricky, of course, is advertisement and finding a model for doing that. Normally, when the city advertises something, it's blasted out to the entire city, and the council normally isn't able to use the resources that the city administration relies on to advertise for these particular events. So we will likely need some assistance from the clerk and just putting these on the calendar, making it, trying to get it out to as many people as we can within those particular neighborhoods. And yeah, so that was just a long list of things to consider when organizing these. But I think we should probably come out of this meeting tonight with a tentative period of time that we want to put on the first ward meeting and determine which ward it should take place in, or one or two that we should have in the near future.
Great, thank you, Councilor Lemming. No, I agree. It would be helpful to have a schedule or a plan of where we want to start, and obviously sooner rather than later, and knowing that the summer months, we won't have many people, so we'll have to count that out as opportunities. I just wanted to clarify one of your comments, saying that the first part of it would be kind of a social and event. Were you imagining this would only be in person? Would each of these different locations have a component, an AV component, to be able to include people that aren't able to be there in person as well? Councilor Lemming.
I guess in my head, I always imagined a ward meeting as being an in-person thing, but now that you said it that way, it probably should have a Zoom component to it. So if it's logistically possible, then sure, it should be hybrid, but that is a little bit difficult to set up. I mean, a ward meeting could be something that takes place in City Hall, like a formal meeting. It could also be it could also be sitting at a restaurant with a couple of neighbors at a table. So the format for these things could be something we might have to experiment with and figure out what works well and what doesn't.
Thank you. Counselor Callahan.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm going to say that it might be good. I might suggest we do them separately. Like, hybrid meetings are very difficult to make work, very, very difficult. But we could have an in-person and a hybrid for each ward, or sorry, in-person and a Zoom virtual for each ward. And that gives people the opportunity to come in person if they're more of an in-person person. If they'd rather do it on Zoom or they're not available or whatever, then they can do the Zoom meeting. I don't think they have to be just one. I mean, some people won't be able to make it at whatever time we choose anyway, so having a couple might be nice. One of the things I'm wondering, by the way, if it is in person, I think it's a great idea to see if we can get like even the tiniest budget for like, some snacks, something to make it, fun and social. And I'm also thinking that while I want to try to ensure that we reach people in the wards that tend to have low voter turnout, like wards 7 and 1, and the ones that tend not to be as engaged. I want to make sure that we do those, but if we do them first, then those are kind of the ones we're experimenting on, right? So maybe it's better if we don't do them first, but we do them after we've had a couple of successful ones in wards where there are more people. I'm just trying to think of like, in terms of which ones we do first, second, and third. I'm not convinced that of course, maybe we should just roll dice, because any way we decide, people are going to feel like, oh, you chose them first, and maybe some sort of random way of selecting would actually be better. And then I do think we should have at least one in person. So we should, for each ward, we should figure out a place, and if that's a restaurant or a coffee shop, that would be great. I think, there's the West Metro Community Center, there are churches, there are places I think that could be open to this kind of event, and that's something we could decide beforehand. I think making sure that it's somewhere that everyone feels welcome and has access to. So,
Great, thank you. Counselor Singh.
Thank you. It's been helpful hearing from everyone. I think it helps frame the thoughts and the discussion. I think it does make sense in terms of ordering to also just, as Counselor Lemming alluded to, look at the zoning timeline as well. I know we have Wellington on there as a separate thing, and so it will probably make sense to do like Ward 7 a little bit, not during it, but right before that, for example. So maybe that can guide our thoughts a little bit too. With regards to like wards 1 and 7, where we see lower voter turnout, I think that it does make a lot of sense to try to gin that up a little bit by treating those places like a priority for us to get into, because very often we're kind of hearing a little bit less from those neighborhoods, and the goal of these is to make sure that everyone is getting an equal voice in government as well. Um, but I would lean towards saying that maybe we do it like third or fourth, for example, rather than first, because I think import the best lessons that we've learned so far, and then I'm sure these are going to be unique meetings, so we'll be learning even more. Um, I'm not opposed to hybrid meetings. I just, given, if, for example, what happened to the Roberts, just how difficult technically it was running that meeting um, last year, I wonder if it would make sense to just have to check if the locations that we're going to do these meetings at are actually well suited for a hybrid, and if not, maybe it would make actually more sense to do an in-person and on a Zoom version of it. I don't really see the harm in having more meetings, and they are distinct skills as well to run those two different types of meetings. They, require us to do different things. And so I think that would make a lot of sense to just explore the list of venues. And Councilor Lemme, I'm not completely sure if you have the list ready or if there were specific places you had in mind, more feedback for us to get, but I think we should look at that list too. With regards to just like a lot of the lower turnout wards, a lot of them have big apartment blocks in them, and I think it would make sense for us to try to set up a meeting in an apartment block too. Um, the River's Edges, the Medford Housing Authority buildings, um, to try to work with people, the apartment associations or anyone running the building, because I think those folks are people who often do get neglected, um, and feel left behind in city government. And so it'd be, I think, helpful for us to get some face time with them as well. Those are just some preliminary thoughts that right now.
Great, thank you. Counselor Lemming.
So I think in terms of the order that the wards should go in, I have a list of pairs that I think should list the general order. So I think that wards 8 and 4 should probably be first on the list, mainly because we have rezoning for Medford Square, and then shortly after the Tufts institutional zoning in Boston Avenue coming up. So those should be very early candidates on the list. And after that, it's a little bit more flexible, maybe 5 or 6 after that, and then 1 and 7 once we have sort of, by the time we get to 1 and 7, we have a lot of practice doing those, and then 2 and 3 last. So that's my I think those are the general chunks that we could do them in, but the only thing that I'm married to in that is just the idea that 8 and 4 should probably be the first two that we do.
Great, thank you, Councilor Lemming. That does make sense to be able to line it up, especially with bigger things that we're going to be discussing with the city council that correlate with each of these different wards. So just so that I'm hearing this correctly, we're going to do in-person and a Zoom one separate, at least at the start, to see how that goes. So I'm assuming if we start with wards 8 and 4, or however we do that, we'll still do the in-person and the hybrid within that same month, so we can make sure that it's not as confusing if we're separating meetings like this for when people are able to join us. Does that sound reasonable? And that we can start generating a list of where we see the ability to host in each one of these different wards to be able to get people to come join us in person. And each of the counselors will be in charge of kind of handling or running it, or is that within the committee members themselves to be able to do? Would welcome any suggestions on that as well. Counselor Lemming.
I would personally like the 2-for-2 model. So like we have a pair of counselors that's in charge of the ward meetings for 8 and 4, just because I want to, if I'm going to run a ward meeting, then I want to make sure it's more than just me at that meeting. So just spread the responsibility out a little bit. Have a buddy to bounce ideas off of and just help you run the meeting. I found that the listening sessions that we've done, the ones that I've liked the most have been the ones where I have somebody there with me also helping to field questions or facilitate. It's my personal preference. I also am a little hesitant about the idea of committing at this point to doing one in-person, one Zoom meeting for each ward, just because that, I mean, I know it sounds simple saying it here, but saying that we're going to plan 16 meetings for over the next 2 years is quite a lot. And that's in addition to everything else that we already do. So, yeah, hopefully when in 2027, when there are 11 counselors, that'll be a little bit more work spread out to do the ward meetings.
Thank you, Council Lemon. No, I agree with you. I think that would be quite a bit of meetings, considering all of the other meetings as well that are on the calendar, and I don't want it to be confusing. So we can kind of, and I do agree having at least having just 2 counselors at each of those different meetings, so that you have someone to bounce stuff off of and be able to help answer any kind of questions, or I think it's a great way to kind of spread that out. So we can start looking at how to disseminate that between each of the different wards and what that looks like. I did want to get back to your other point, though, about agenda items. It does make sense to maybe have some initial standing agenda items that we'd want to make consistent through each of the wards, but then also offering it up for each of the wards to have time to be able to either send something in that's specific or be able to bring something up, obviously, when we're in the meeting themselves. Does that sound like something that makes the most sense, to be able to kind of at least keep some of it consistent, but also allow for any kind of flexibility that may be a little bit more ward specific? Councillor Lemming.
I do like the idea of fielding feedback, with like a few weeks before the meetings from residents, so that their concerns can help dictate the agenda instead of it sort of coming top down. I think that's an effective way of doing things. It's just we will have to advertise as widely as possible with that these are happening.
Councillor Callahan.
Thank you. I also want to emphasize that, in some of the listening sessions that I've done, it can happen that, a couple of people who already are the ones who come to city council all the time, and we have heard from them many times, they can dominate the entire meeting. So I think what's really important in these meetings is facilitating. I once did a meeting where almost the entire meeting was dominated by 2 people who come to city council all the time, and when that meeting was over, I got a ride. Someone asked if, they were like, please, can I give you a ride? I gave someone a ride, that's what it was. I gave someone a ride in my car, and they said, that meeting was so hostile, I didn't feel like I could even open my mouth. And then they started talking to me about the things they wanted to talk about. So I think it's really important that when we facilitate these, we make sure that we hear from everyone, right? The people who are maybe not talking at least have an opportunity, and that like, what I find can be really helpful is at the beginning to say, hey, we're here to talk about housing, to talk about zoning, to talk about, school funding, to talk about, like, we come up with like a list that is fairly comprehensive for people. And then if the conversation is being dominated by a few people, at some point you got to say, hey, great, I really appreciate you bringing these issues to us. We just want to make sure that everyone here has an opportunity to ask questions and to speak their minds. I'd like to, let's go ahead and have a step up, step back policy, right? I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but that's something that sometimes people do, is they just at the very beginning, they say, hey, we're gonna, it's our goal to hear from everyone here. We're gonna have a step up, step back policy, so that if you've been stepping up and asking some questions, then, we may ask for some of those folks who have not, may ask them to step up and for you to step back, just to kind of there should be some active facilitation, I think, in these conversations.
Councillor Lemming.
I 100% agree with my colleague that at the listening sessions that we've been to, some of them, yes, have been dominated by people that we already have heard their concerns many times at city council meetings. That is definitely a dynamic that can occur. And just to echo what she said, after the meetings, people have come up to me and asked their actual questions, and people who I know, and I also know that people who like I casually know in a social context who might have happened to come to those meetings, who've never been to a city council meeting before, were shocked at that was what we had to, that was the nature of these meetings. I will say that my natural personality is much less charming than Councillor Callahan, so I have trouble facilitating these meetings sometimes without ticking residents off. One of my strategies for handling that is just changing the format of the meetings, and this is something that I'm giving, that I've thought about and have some half-baked solutions to, which I will share at this meeting being recorded on YouTube. One of them is that if it is an audience meeting, like a chair audience panel, which has been the format of some of the listening sessions before, then it sort of sets itself up to be adversarial, especially for people who are used to the adversarial nature of city council meetings can sometimes take. So having it be at like a large restaurant or the Great American Beer Hall or something like that, where residents know that they are perfectly free to talk, could be an alternative to having this sort of panel style ward meeting that we typically do. So I'm sort of leaning towards having trying to host the ward meeting at just a table on a Sunday in the Great American Beer Hall, and if somebody comes there super angry or wanting to dominate a conversation, they're just not able to do that quite as much at like a very social setting like that. So that's one thing I'm thinking about, and there are other. So I think there are multiple ways to sort of address this issue, but it very much will be a dynamic moving forward with some of these sessions.
Thank you. And I agree with you. I definitely want it to be a place where people feel open and able to discuss any different type of issue. And, when I mentioned just having standing agenda items, I don't mean to ever stop people from adding other ideas to it. I just thought that maybe it would give a little bit more structure to what people would be expecting, that these are some of the topics, and that we always are open to hearing any other kind of thoughts as well. So, I appreciate that, and I appreciate kind of the setup and how we can approach it to make people feel as comfortable as possible to be able to come and speak with us as well. Councilor Callahan.
Thanks. The other thing that I have brought up before, and I understand there's some mix of opinions on this, but I think it's important. To me, the idea of a listening session is that we are listening to the people who arrive, right? We are listening to the residents. And I think, unfortunately, in these more contentious ones, the way that it ends up being is a resident will demand answers from us. So they ask the questions and we answer. And it's just all about what our opinions are, and then they don't like it or they don't like it, right? So to me, what a listening session is we're asking questions, how many people live on a road that's not paved well? Who has had trees that have, been a stump for a long period of time? What is your experience of your kids in the schools? Do they need to take a bus? Or, just us asking and finding out, how many people here are renters? And, has your rent gone up like crazy? Finding out from them what their lives are like and what they struggle with. Oh, I see there's a lot of senior citizens here. How many of you, are having trouble getting around the city? Do you miss the transportation option that we had during COVID with the van that was going around? Us asking them questions, and I think there could be a balance of the two. So, you can even be the first half of this will be us asking you questions, and then the second half, so please hold your questions, because the second half, we would love to hear your questions for us. So, I think that can help people feel oh, their questions will be answered. we're not avoiding their questions, but we simply want to make sure that we also are able to like find out from residents, like, hey, how is this affecting you? Have you seen any changes because of the three like rodent control ordinances that we passed? Those sorts of things.
Thank you. I think those are great points, Councilor Callahan, too, because I do want to make sure that people, that they're not being talked at, that we're feeling more of a conversation and that people feel more comfortable sharing their feelings on it. Councilor Lemming.
Sorry, I was just, sorry, my microphone was accidentally already on from the previous time, but Councilor Scarpelli has his.
Great. Councilor Scarpelli.
Thank you. And I appreciate everybody sharing their input with this. And I like the fact that we're looking at, going into the neighborhoods, because I think that we saw when Council Falco at the time moved the community policing meetings to the neighborhoods, we really had a better turnout and really got to listen to people. But I don't want to be like I said, I'm really trying to be positive, but as the meeting's going on, I'm getting texts from people that are watching on that are just questioned that if it's a true listening session, I can understand going into that neighborhood and, give some options of what they want to talk about, but then letting our residents talk. I think that's what is a little confusing of, having the listening session. I also understand that we don't want people to dominate meetings, and that's up to the council that's running that meeting to really control that dialogue. But at the same time, is it a true listening meeting if we're going to control the dialogue? So I just, like I said, I think that this is a great idea. I think this is a process where we're bringing, our body to the people. And I think I've been negatively going at that especially with the zoning. But I don't know, I just wanted us to consider that just a little bit more, that, having those meetings and, wherever they may be, it could be at a restaurant and just sitting with 5 or 10 neighbors and just listening. Because we all know a lot of times when we have concerns in neighborhoods, we don't know until we get the phone call, right? So, and then we realize how that one concern doesn't just resonate in that one neighborhood, but throughout the community. And then we're now putting on our leadership hats to make some real substantive changes. So, I just caution us not to really, I think just the innocence of it, of having a listening session and going into the neighborhoods, I just think trying that alone. And when we get there, maybe share some topics that can get the topics that conversation started. But I think that if we're going to put limitations and talk about some of the things I've heard tonight from some of us, that we're just going to turn people away, guys. They're just not going to resonate to what the intent was, I thought. So again, I appreciate the input. I just wanted to share my thoughts and, what someone shared with me. So thank you.
No, thank you, Councilor Scarpelli. Appreciate that. Councilor Sang.
Yeah, I think Councilor Scarpelli's points are well taken. In my experience at the neighborhood meetings or at the listening sessions, really like I think people are really feel really free to tell us whatever they want, even if it's really critical. And I've certainly heard that at meetings, and I'm sure other counselors who've done the meetings have heard that as well. It really is, I think, in practice, a very open time to just for folks to just bring whatever's on their minds to us. And then we might have, they might have questions for us, and we can give our answers. At least speaking as individual counselors and not as, on behalf of others. But in practice, it seems it's always been to me like a very free flowing place, and to the extent that you know there might be impressions of mm, controlling discourse or anything, which has not been true to my experience. I think a lot of it is just making sure that residents have an equal chance to participate, to speak, um, and they feel like they're free to speak as well. And like you noted, it's down to the facilitator to do that.
Thank you. Counselor Lemming.
And my colleagues' points are very well taken, and I would like to clarify that the intent of these conversations is not to say that if residents come and they want to talk, we're going to try to silence them. That's not what's going on. The concern I had with the listening session, which I think was reflected in my colleagues and Councilor Callahan's remarks earlier, was not that we were concerned, not so much that we were concerned that somebody was bringing their concerns to us, because we can hear concerns all day, every day. The issue is when other residents that attended that same session come up later and say they feel like they didn't have the chance to speak. It was their first time going to that. It might have been their first time coming to an event with one of their city councilors, and they feel like they came there with their own set of concerns and they didn't get to express it in that time period. And that is the situation that I personally would like to avoid. And I fully agree that just changing the format could be a solution, where instead of having it be some overly moderated event, it could be a more informal setting in a restaurant, as was suggested. It could feel like a much more friendly atmosphere that people come to, something where it's set up to be listening and discussion rather than an event where people feel like the intent is to have too much moderation there. So that's the point that I wanted to make. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Counselor Callahan.
Thanks. I know we're pushing up on time. I was just hoping that we could look at wards 8 and 4, since those are the ones we're thinking of doing first, and just brainstorm a few possible locations that we could reach out to and see if those might work. I think obviously in 8 is Colleen's, which would not be a bad place. They've had plenty of, city councilors at their space, so I think that might be a good one. Also the Great American Beer Hall. So those would be a couple for that space. In 4, what have we got in 4? There's Goldilocks. I don't know them. I'm just trying to think of like what are some. Oh, there's Tamper, right? Is in 4. Isn't Tamper?
Is Danish pastry in 4?
Danish pastry, I think, is also, because it's right there next to Tamper. So
Yeah.
Danish pastry and Tamper are both in 4. I'm just trying to think of some options that we can, reach out to and.
For 8, honestly, I would go with the Great American Beer Hall, just because that has pretty big tables in it. Colleen's is also. Is Colleen's in 4? I'd have to look, because some of these cutoffs. Okay, or sorry, 8. I think it is, yeah. But yeah, I think they do have a lot of great options. My concerns with 4 is that there tend to be a lot of cafes along Boston Avenue, but some of them can be kind of small, so it depends on how many folks we want to get in there. I was also thinking about maybe Tufts has some space, but I'm not sure who to reach out to for that.
Thank you. No, I think it's a good suggestion to get started with wards 8 and 4 and putting together some ideas and suggestions. And to anyone watching or listening, if they also have some thoughts and suggestions of some good places, please feel free to email me and let me know. We can start putting that together. I know we are cutting close on time, but I do want to open up to any public comment in the room or on Zoom. Right now I have someone in the room, so let me turn it over.
Patrick Clerkin, 14 Bennett Place. So 3 things that are really more logistical. I think it's a really good idea to start with a pilot program in 4 and 8. I think that's savvy. I think standardization is a good concept, but also keeping in mind, it's like when you dig a hole in the ground and it's like, okay, there's rocks, there's soft clay, there's a pipe, there's a skeleton. Like when you look at Medford in these not random, but you look at the political boundaries of the different wards, you're going to get different pockets of different things in that cross section. So you're going to get pockets of frustration, you're going to get pockets of basically that are information deserts where people have no idea what's going on. You're going to get pockets of people who are already very tuned in and enthusiastic. So within those random cross sections, you're going to get a random cross section of that random cross section that actually shows up at the meeting. And so I think keeping in mind that from my experience, what I've seen is there's 3 general types of people that show up interest-wise. There's people looking for a support group, there's people looking for a think tank, and there's people looking for an action network. And the support group people are more inclined towards really wanting to build reconciliation and open a dialogue, and the think tank people are like policy wonk, like, okay, how do we do this? What can we think about, and what can we implement? And then the action network people are thinking to themselves, like, I don't want to be too woo-woo here. I don't want to be too brainy here. I just want to start moving and getting stuff done. So I think like once you start interacting with people, getting a sense of sort of how those people talk, and you don't just necessarily fall into one of those categories, you could be multiple, but I think talking to different people in the way that they seem to be inclined to want to engage will help reduce some of these animosities that emerge. The other thing is I think it will really help through that process. I think you can uncover some potential super volunteers in each of these wards that can really help extend your reach, because to Councillor Lemming's point earlier, there's 7 of you. Maybe in 2027 when there's 11, it will be more spread out, but I think you need leverage within the wards. And then the final thing is, echoing my point from earlier, I think actually getting the word out about this stuff, some events that are already on the calendar, Cleanup Day is going to be May 2nd, and that's already open on the Mayor's tab on the city website. If people host cleanup spots in the city in the different wards, that could be a good mechanism for actually meeting some of these people and getting word out to them, and maybe they could be some of those volunteers. Also, block parties in May. I don't know if there's any rhythm to how people typically set up block parties, but there's kind of a month period between winter and summer where people are out and about, and maybe that can be leveraged too. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments on Zoom? Okay, seeing none, it sounds like Great, thank you. It sounds like we've kind of started putting together a little bit of a plan and of a start, working within wards 8 and 4, and also to Councilor Scarpelli's points as well. We really want to make sure everyone feels welcome and voices are heard. So any thoughts, suggestions, again, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to collect them and add them in as we start kind of putting together more of a plan. So I think maybe we continue putting this together, identifying for wards 8 and 4 and just confirming that we have the right spots for it, a little bit of a strategy in terms of the advertising plan for it, and leaving it open enough for enough time for anyone to reach out. Love the idea of any super volunteers, so certainly in each of these different wards, if you would be willing to help, please again, reach out to me, and we can start kind of putting that in there as well. So is there any motion on the floor at this point in order to try to keep this moving? Councillor Callahan.
I move to keep the paper in committee and adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Counselor Kelly.
Yes.
Counselor Lemming. Yes. Counselor Scarpelli.
Yes.
Counselor Singh.
Yes.
Chair Mullane.
Yes. 5 in favor, 0 against. Meeting is adjourned.